Well, good morning. And we are glad that you are here today, and especially the 9 o'clock. The 9 o'clock is always my favorite one because you're either up early because you got little kids and you have no choice, or you're not lazy. You're not going to wait until midday to come to church. And let's just be honest, there's nothing quite like the desperate hope of Bears fans before a season begins. And so those of you who are here early, hoping to get home in time, and this is like that one brief window of time where you go, no, seriously, this is it. Like we got the number one pick in the draft. Like everything's going to change. Here's my encouragement to you: just enjoy these next 2 hours. Just enjoy it, because it will all go downhill in about 3 minutes from noon, and you'll be done. But I'll eat the words next week if you actually did well. As a Patriots fan, I don't know what you feel like, so that's I get it. So, hey, let me just add my voice real quickly. As Matt mentioned, this coming weekend is our Bloom and Bloomies conference, and let me just say, women, listen, if you don't have this on your schedule yet, make sure you jump in. This weekend has been prayed for. We're going to have some incredible times of just gathering together, worship, some amazing communicators that have been praying for our church for a long time. Many of you have heard and maybe even are familiar with Julie Richard. She leads Fearless Moms across the country, and she is going to be here speaking, not just for Bloom, but she'll be with us next Sunday to be communicating in our parenting series that we're starting today. And then many of you know Megan Fate Marshman, who is a friend of Heritage, an incredible communicator and author, has an amazing story of what God has done. In fact, she had just wrote a book that she just released. It is called Relaxed, and I love the title. It says, Walking with the One Who Is Not Worried About a Thing. And she is going to be here. It's going to be an incredible thing. And so if you haven't signed up for that, I just want to encourage you to do so right now. In fact, just to kind of incentivize us a little bit, is there anyone who has already registered for Bloom right in the room? Go ahead and raise your hand. Now, keep your hand. Anyone who is registered for the very first time, this will be your very first Bloom. All right, I think I saw in the white hoodie. Come on up. I want to give you a copy. Yes, you're the first one that came up. We're excited. Your first one. This is an autographed copy. Not by Megan. I autographed it, but but you can get her to sign it. But man, you're going to have an absolute blast, and it's going to be awesome. Now listen, here's the other thing. If you have yet to sign up, here's the deal. We already have taken a look at the last people to register. The next 10 people who sign up today, right now in this service, you can stop by our guest experience as you go in the lobby, and we will give you a free book. And so if you've been trying to go, I don't know if I want to do this or if I can, sign up. God's going to use you, and God's going to use this weekend. It's going to be pretty powerful. So take your phones out if you want to. Go to heritagechurch.cc/Bloom. You can sign up right now. You can sign up a friend. You can just sign up someone who doesn't even know and just be like, hey, guess what? I got you a ticket. You're going to go to this. It is just a powerful, powerful moment and weekend. And so make sure that you are a part of it. So the next 10 people, I know I joke a lot, but it's serious. We have a free book for you. If you sign up right now, they already know who the last person to register. And if you are like the person who just registered an hour ago, you're like, gosh darn it, unbelievable. We'll give you a book too, all right? Just make sure you sign up and be a part of it. It's going to be pretty awesome what God is going to do this weekend. And if you've got young girls in 1st through 8th grade, Bloomies is one of the most special things that we do, being able to pass on to the next generation. And we have so many things tailored and crafted to girls in 1st through 8th grade. I'm telling you, it is worth moving your plans. It is worth canceling your practices. It is worth doing what you can do so that your kids can be in a moment like that where they experience how much God loves them and has a purpose and a plan for them. So, I encourage you to be a part of that. Jump into it. Sign them up today. As Matt mentioned, we're starting a brand new series today across all of our campuses. And if this is your first time here, maybe someone invited you. Thanks for being with us and hanging out with us today. We're starting a new series today called Picture Perfect. And the reason I was thinking about this is growing up, one of the biggest events in my family was our family pictures that we would try to take every year. Now, we're not very good about it. We have a good friend who's one of the most amazing photographers I've ever met, and she did family photos for us once. And every year we look at them and go, we got to do that again. We got to do that again. but we don't. And so we just use that same picture whenever I travel. I'm like, yeah, this is our family picture. I'm like, but they're all like 15 years older now, but that was the best one we had. And I remember when we grew up, this was like the big deal in our family. And my mom and dad had this idea that we've got to create this perfect family portrait. And so we had two options. We didn't have a lot of resources growing up. And so if you had resources, you went to places like Olin Mills, if you remember that. Any of those old enough to remember Olin Mills? And you go through it. We went to J.C. Penney. That's kind of where we went. And you sat on like little blocks of carpet. And it was just a really big deal. And my parents had in this mind, like, this is going to be amazing. And so we would have themes at different times. You know, we would all dress alike sometimes. It would be like all denim, like we were the CEO of Levi Strauss, and we're just kind of hanging out, like all decked out. Or we'd go these things, and no matter how picture perfect we had in our mind, my parents had in their mind, there was always going to be something that ruined it, right? Our mom and dad, they're sweating the entire time trying to get kids riled up. Kids are sitting down, they're wrinkling their clothes, but then there's like this moment where you have to smile, and you're trying to convince the world like everything's good. that we enjoy this, and we're really happy to be able to have this kind of moment together. And it seemed like the goal was always to get the perfect family picture, right? The kind where you just hope that at the end of it, the J.C. Penney guy was going to say, this was beautiful. We'd like to use your picture in our picture frames that we're going to sell to all of the public, right? That was always the goal, and it never quite happened for us, but we wanted to become the Olin Mills picture perfect family. And honestly, I'm the only one that probably could have pulled that off. The rest of my family isn't much to look at, but man, this is one of them here. I'm going to be honest, like those are devil eyes. Like it's just dark in there. That kid was a terror, right? But we had this picture in our mind of how we wanted our family to be, how we wanted everyone to see, when in reality, the real us was a little more awkward. Maybe it looked a bit like this. That I felt like that was kind of the reality for most of us. You see, here's the thing. Every generation, man, we've always tried to capture the best image and the best versions of ourselves, from Olin Mills to glamour shots. Remember those? MySpace to Facebook to Instagram. Like we try to create these highlight reels of our life so that everybody can see us from the outside and they could see us in this polished up version of our life. And the problem with that, though, is that it kind of leads us to believe that other people's lives and other people's marriages, other people's kids, other people's families are perfect compared to ours. But the truth is, there are no perfect people. There's no perfect kids, there's no perfect parents, and there's certainly no perfect families. And if you're anything like me, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to kids, when it comes to trying to be a good parent, no matter what stage or season of your life, sometimes we feel like we can use all the help we can get. And honestly, that's kind of the heart behind this series that we're putting together over these next couple of weeks, is just to have some honest conversations about becoming all that God designed us to be, no matter what season of life we are in, no matter what our relationships look like, right? Because maybe you're sitting here going, well, a message series about parenting isn't really my thing. Like, I don't have kids, or I had kids and I've raised them and now they're on their own, and I am just an empty nester and I'm loving life and I don't have any responsibilities anymore when it comes to kids. And so there's a part of you that might even push back going, how is this series even going to be all that helpful for me? Well, here's the thing. Maybe you're not a parent, or like I said, perhaps you've raised your kids already. The truth is every single one of us, we have relationships in our life where we have significant influence. Maybe now it's with grandkids. Maybe it's with your grown-up kids. Maybe it's with friends or coworkers or neighbors, or you're an aunt, you're an uncle, you're a coach, you're a teacher. You have relationships where you have significant influence. And the principles that we're going to talk about over the next couple of weeks, while they're centered around this idea of parenting and family, they can actually kind of be used and adapted to any relationship. And so often when it comes to relationships or dating or marriage or parenting or family, whenever we have a moment and we take some time and we set it aside and we do a message series about relationships, or we talk about what marriage looks like, or parenting and family, one of the things that I hear more often than not is as we finish up that series, people come up to me and say, man, I wish I'd heard this 20 years earlier. I wish I'd heard this sooner. And here's my encouragement for you. It is never too late to step into God's design for you. Right? And there are going to be some things that I think you're going to hear over the next couple of weeks that are going to be some powerful next steps for you, regardless of the season that you are in. And so while today we're going to talk about this idea of parenting and relationships, and you may be sitting there thinking, I don't know if this applies to me, I promise you, just listen. You will find some things that you can adapt and you can change to other important areas and aspects of your life as well. And so here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about what parents need in order to be effective at preparing their kids for adulthood. Now again, you may already have raised your kids. That doesn't mean these aren't things that you still need, because here's the reality. All you've done is launched your kids into adulthood. You've never stopped being a parent, and you will never stop being a parent. And so if you think the goal is just to get them to 18 and on their own, man, are you about to be surprised. Because that thing continues forever. And now, not only that, here's what statistics have shown us. Over the last 20 years, the average age that a kid finally leaves home is 27. Yeah, now some of you are like, see, Mom, that's why I live in the basement and I play Xbox all day. Like some of your kids, we need them to grow up, right? But listen, if you think the job is just going to be 18 and then they're done, that's just never the case. Ask any parent who's raised kids who now have adults and those kids have kids. You are continuing your role of influence in the life of your family, right? And so we're going to talk about these things. And then this is why we're going to start with parents. These are the things that every parent needs in order to continue to raise kids all throughout adulthood, right? And we're going to start with us, because here's why this is important. Before you can lead your family, you must first lead yourself. Right? Let me say that again. Before you can lead your family, you must first lead yourself. Think about it this way. One of the biggest fears that people have, right? They say that the number one fear that people have is public speaking. They don't like to speak in front of other people. One of the top three is people have a fear of flying. Now, maybe that's you, and honestly, just the thought of it, it freaks you out, you don't like it, you get anxious the entire time, and can we just be honest, it's for good reason, right? Have you ever walked onto a plane and you actually listen to the flight attendant? Like, they're just telling you the worst possible scenarios ever, and they're just doing it so calm. They're like, in the event of a water landing, you're like, what? They're like, no, don't worry, that seat you're sitting on, it's about an inch thick, it is also a life preserver, right? Or my favorite, in the event that all of the oxygen in this cabin gets sucked out of the room, there's going to be this little mask that falls down, and everything's going to be fine, right? My favorite, though, is they say, hey, in the event that we lose some cabin pressure, you're going to grab this mask and be sure to put the mask on yourself first, right? Then choose your kid with the most potential and help them next, right? Now, why do you think that a flight attendant says, hey, make sure in the event of losing oxygen that you put your mask on first, right? Well, it's because you have to understand, if you don't take care of yourself, no matter how much you want to take care of your family, you can't. Proverbs chapter 4 says, guard your heart, because above all else, it determines the course for your life. Now, this scripture isn't talking just about your physical heart. It's talking about the overall concept of who you are and the health of who you are, right? It's above all else, make sure you stay physically and spiritually and emotionally and mentally healthy. Guard your heart. Guard what owns you. Guard what your priorities are going to be, because that is going to determine everything else in your life. In other words, don't be so caught up with the busyness and the stress and the demands of life that you let your guard down. You are responsible for you. What that means is my priority needs to be working on me. It needs to be focusing on me so that I can parent my kids from a place of health. See, at the end of the day, I'm only going to be able to pass on to them out of what I have myself. Right? And here's why this is so important. Because whatever is in my heart spills out into my life, and it becomes a part of my parenting. Right? Let me just say that again. If you're taking notes, you can write this down. If you're not taking notes, you're probably the greatest parent the world's ever seen. Whatever is in my heart spills out into my life and becomes a part of my parenting. Right? So here's the thing. Today, what I want to do is I want to start by sharing a few commitments that we need to make as parents, no matter what stage of season you're in. You may be a soon-to-be parent. You may be a parent of toddlers, junior hires, senior hires. You may have adult kids. These are commitments that every single one of us that have a relationship with influence need to make a commitment to. And this is where we got to start. We got to start with us. We need to guard our heart from some things that would hurt our family. Right? So if you're taking notes, here's the very first one. We need to start by just making a commitment to less guilt. Every parent I know feels guilty about something. Every parent I know feels guilty about something, right? And let's just be honest, maybe there's some times that we should feel guilty about the kind of parenting that we've been doing. And hopefully throughout this series, we're gonna hear some things on how we can address some of those things. We can deal with some of those things that we can help become better people, better husbands, better parents, better spouses, and we can work on those areas. But ultimately, we need to hear this. You cannot own every decision your kids make. You can't own every decision your kids make. I have some really dear friends of mine, and some of those parents regret that they were too hard on their kids. They look back and they go, man, I wish I could have done it different. Because now they've watched as they've created a wall of fear between them and their children. Other parents look back and regret how easy they were on their kids. Right? Maybe they feel guilty for never drawing lines or setting limits, and now they've watched how their kids have grown up with a lack of discipline. There's a sense of entitlement, and it's played out in their kids' life. Some parents regret giving too much to their kids, right? And so now their kids live with this sense of entitlement that they deserve things that maybe they don't necessarily deserve. Others regret that they weren't able to provide more for their kids. They wish they could have given their kids more. And they look back and go, man, I regret that I didn't be able to do that. I couldn't provide it for my kids. Some parents live with guilt of not giving more time to their kids. Maybe for whatever reason, maybe it was work or priorities or just things that seemed out of your control. Or maybe it was just you have this idea that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And if it needs to come at the expense of being present, it's a price I have to pay right now in order to whatever it may be. Some parents regret that they smothered their kids. They spent way too much time with their kids, and it never really allowed them space to grow on their own. Listen, here's my point. Every parent has regrets. And if I could just encourage us as we kind of begin, I think as a parent we need to make a commitment to say, you know what? I'm going to commit to less guilt. The thing that I'm going to commit to is to do the very best that I can each and every moment. But here's the thing. You cannot ignore the fact that your child also has a free will. That your kids can make their own decisions, and ultimately our kids are responsible for their own choices. Proverbs chapter 13 verse 1 says, a wise child accepts a parent's discipline. A mocker refuses to listen to correction. Now, some of us can go, that sums up the life of parenting that I've experienced. And here's the reality. It actually happens to all of us. Do you know Jesus himself had disciples, people he had relationship and influence, and in some way was like a father figure in their life? Even Jesus had a disciple who betrayed him. King David in the scriptures had children who rejected him. He even had one of his own sons who tried to kill him and take over his kingdom. Like, that's just a bad parenting season. Like, let's just be honest. There's a priest in the scriptures, his name's Eli. He had 2 sons. And how would you like this? The Bible refers to his 2 sons, doesn't even give them names. He just calls his 2 sons scoundrels, right? That's a church pastor and his church kids, scoundrels, right? Then Noah, many of you have heard the name Noah. You've heard about Noah and the ark. The Bible actually describes Noah as one of the most righteous men of his generation. Do you know there's a moment in Noah's life where he got drunk, passed out in a tent, and his kids walked in on him naked? Like, that's not a good parenting moment. And it's not good camping etiquette either, right? The point is that we all have some things that this is going to happen. And here's the thing, I can tell you from my own experience over the past 17 years of being a parent, here's one thing that I have learned. All you can really do as a parent is your best. That's it. And sometimes you're going to screw it up. But forgive yourself and move on. See, ultimately, our kids are going to do what they decide to do. So as a parent, do your best. Pray for your kids. Put everything you have into it. Listen to God's Spirit and God's wisdom. But man, don't live your life beating yourself up. And some of you, maybe you need to start there today. Because maybe you live with a lot of regrets. And maybe there's some decisions that you need to own, that you've caused some hurt and some pain. And I want to encourage you to do that. Take those things before the Lord. Ask for forgiveness. Ask your children, your spouse, those you may have brought some pain to, and ask for them to forgive you. But at some point you have to go, all right, I need to move on. I need to let it go. Lord, you've forgiven me. I've done all that I can do. Right? And so that's my encouragement. Make that commitment. Don't live your life beating yourself up. Here's the second one. It leads to the second commitment. The second commitment that we as parents need to make if we're going to guard our hearts and protect the things that matter when it comes to our family is this. We need to commit to ongoing humility as parents, right? Since we're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way when it comes to this parenting thing, one of the single most effective tools in your toolbox is going to be ongoing humility. Now, can I ask you something? When was the last time that your kids heard you utter the words, "I'm sorry"? When was the last time your kids heard you say, "Hey, listen, I was wrong. Hey, would you please forgive me?" See, here's what we know. Most people in general, and kids in particular, are willing to forgive when someone falls short, if they're willing to own it. Right? What people have a really difficult time forgiving is when you are unable to admit that you were wrong in the first place. Right? Like I always joke with my kids, like, hey, listen, I remember, like, listen, I've made mistakes before. Like, I remember in that time in 4th grade, like, I messed up. So I know what it's like when you make mistakes. You never want to admit that you make mistakes. But the truth is, we make mistakes all the time. And what ongoing humility does is it puts you in this posture as a parent to model something really important to your kids. One, that you can take ownership. And that's a really big deal, especially raising kids in this day and age, that we can take some ownership. It also demonstrates that you are under the authority of something greater than yourself. You go, hey, you know what, man, I messed that up. I lost my temper. I shouldn't have done that. Hey, would you please forgive me? And we begin to open those things up. In 1 Peter chapter 5, the Apostle Peter, he's actually writing to a church family, and he's providing some instruction on how they're supposed to interact with one another. And as part of that instruction, here's what he writes in chapter 5, verse 5. He says, in the same way, you who are younger must keep the authority of the elders. If you're younger, you need to listen. Right? You need to follow the instructions. You need to obey the rules. You need to obey the laws. You need to obey the wisdom of those who are in authority over you, right? If you're younger, don't think you know it all. Realize that there's people who have gone before you who are more experienced, who have some different things, who have experienced some challenges. They're trying to protect you, like lean into the wisdom of the next older generation. It's what I love the most about Heritage Church is that we are a multi-generational church. And if you are older in the generations, we need you in this church. We need you to speak life and wisdom into the life of this church, into families and friendships and relationships. We need those things. But then he also says this. He says, all of you though, whether you're young, whether you're old, dress yourself in humility as you relate to one another. For God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Peter's really quick to remind the younger generations that they must accept responsibility, accept the authority of the older generation. However, he's also careful to point out that everything must be done with humility because God opposes the proud and gives grace to the humble. Here's the thing. When it comes to retaining influence, nothing erodes influence quicker than when your kids feel like you are never wrong. When it comes to retaining influence, and let me just be really clear, I'll tell you what these next 4 weeks are going to lead us to. It's going to lead you to the goal that you retain influence and you grow friendship with your kid. That's the goal of parenting. That you parent in a way that you allow yourself to still have a voice in your kid's life. It doesn't matter what age they are. And so we're going to talk in the next few weeks, how do you start parenting with the end in mind? How do I try to maintain influence? How do I raise the kind of kids that actually want to be around me when I'm older? And I'm just telling you, nothing erodes influence, not just with your kids, but really in any relationship, quicker than when you feel like you're never wrong. If there's no room for you to be wrong, you are going to lose influence with your kids. That's why we need ongoing humility as we move forward in parenting, regardless of whatever season that you're in with your kids. Some of you are too proud to go back and fix some things that you broke. And so what you've done for the last 10 years, maybe 20 years, is you've just lived with distance in the relationship with your kids because you don't want to have the humility to go back and say, hey, I messed that up, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was an idiot. I was about to use a different word, but I realized we're in church today. Man, I really messed up. Man, I wish I could have fixed that 20 years ago. Wish I would have done this. All I can do right now is just tell you I'm so sorry. Right? Some of us are too proud to do that, and so we live with thinking this is just the way it is. This is why ongoing humility is a commitment that every parent needs to make, regardless of your season or age in life. Here's the third one. Every parent needs to make this commitment. We need to commit to unwavering perseverance. Ask anyone who's gone before you. Parenting requires perseverance. The truth is you're going to have trials and you're going to have difficulties when it comes to raising your kids, right? Even like that perfect kid that you have is still going to cause some headaches and it's going to cause some issues. And all you can do as a parent sometimes is just hang in there. Decide that you're never going to give up. Make the commitment that, hey, I'm in this for the long haul. I'm not going to throw in the towel, right? And because here's the thing, by the way, unwavering perseverance is a commitment that is needed to be successful at anything in life, right? If I would have quit the first time there was challenges here at Heritage Church, or if I would have quit the first time in my marriage or with my kids, chances are I wouldn't be standing here before you today. And my guess is you're the same as me. If you had jumped ship, if you have given up before those things, if you had decided to walk away the first time things got hard, man, you wouldn't be in the season you're in. You see, sometimes success is measured by just simply getting through the season of difficulty and challenge. That's succeeding as a parent. That's succeeding as an adult. Sometimes the very best thing you can do is just stay with it. Refuse to give up. Refuse to throw in the towel. Refuse to walk in. And listen, you might be in a really difficult season as a parent right now. Maybe you're going through some things and you have no idea what to do as a parent, right? It doesn't feel like there's even a book written for it. Or you may have some young kids and man, there's a willful child or a lazy child. You got kids that are making poor decisions. You're constantly baffled by their attitudes or their mood swings or their sense of entitlement or the choices that they're making that is breaking your heart as a mom or a dad. And hey, can I just tell you, friend, don't give up. Don't give up. Sometimes all you can do is stay engaged and ride out the storm. And in order to do that, it requires a commitment as a parent to unwavering perseverance. And let me just give you two more as we kind of wrap up this morning. And honestly, these next two may be the most important commitments that you can make as a parent. Here's the fourth one if you're taking notes. Every parent needs to commit to a healthy marriage. A healthy marriage. It is impossible to be great parents and have a poor marriage. Some of us, we justify our season or life or our relationships. We go, well, listen, I know I'm not the best spouse, but man, I'm a great dad. Friend, let me just tell you, as much as I love you, you're not nearly as good of a dad as you think you are if your kids don't know that you have a good, strong marriage relationship with your wife. Every good relationship requires work. And the health of our marriage is honestly one of the biggest factors in personal security for our kids. Right now, here's the thing. If you're a single parent or you're in a blended family, man, just hear me. This is not meant to shame you at all. Right? Because I recognize that it takes two to make a marriage work. And oftentimes there are circumstances and choices that people make that are out of your control. And you're now having to live in the choices, and things have gotten different. And I know there's so many of us, when we look back at our relationships or our marriages or maybe our first marriage or maybe some even our second marriage, whatever it may be, or the choices, man, we wish we could go back. We would have made some choices differently, right? And so hear me this morning, man. I just want you to know there's help, there is hope, there is support for you here in this place as a church. And if you find yourself, you're a single mom or you're in a blended family and you're going, man, I wish we would have made different choices. But that's not my reality right now. I just want you to know this is the place for you. You have a home here. And you have people who love you and they want to come alongside of you. And your past doesn't determine what the future is going to be. And so, man, please be encouraged. But I also want to help those of us who are married, who are raising kids, to understand how important the role of marriage plays in your parenting. Right? So let me just ask you this question. What are you doing to nurture romance and friendship in your marriage? Right? Because every couple I've ever known has had to navigate the adjustments from before kids where all of the attention was on each other to after kids where all of the attention is now on the kids. And how big of a struggle it is that as your kids get older to start shifting attention back to each other. Every couple I know has had to try to figure out how to navigate that. And honestly, you may be sitting here today and you haven't spoken those things together with your spouse, but you know, man, I don't know that they feel prioritized. I don't know that our marriage feels more important than raising our kids right now. And so if you're just kind of trying to awkwardly avoid looking at your spouse right now, let me just give you a couple ideas. How can you do that? How can you begin to nurture romance and friendship in your marriage, right? And try to do that while still raising kids and doing the activities and trying to make them feel prioritized. I'm not saying it's easy, but there's some little things that you can begin to do right now that I promise you will start to prioritize that relationship. And the way your marriage goes matters more than you will ever know when it comes to your kids, right? So let me just give you a couple ideas, right? Here's a couple. Give compliments. Give compliments to each other. Show affection in front of your kids. Let them see how much you love each other. Well, I have a goal in my family. Like, I want my kids grossed out at the PDA between me and their mom. Like, if I don't see them throwing up in their mouth, I got work to do. Like, if they're like if I don't hear them go, oh my God, Dad, stop. Like, I'm like, nope, I got more work to go through, right? Hey, I'm just telling you, give affection to your spouse. Give encouragement and let your kids see you do it. It matters more than you know. right? Plan a consistent date night. Like maybe you don't have the resources or even the time, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just maybe it's grabbing coffee in the morning together and taking a few minutes, or grabbing a glass of wine at the end of the night and just having a conversation. Whatever it is, you begin to prioritize this, and you begin to show your spouse and you begin to model for your kids that quality time does a lot. Right? And that's how you nurture romance and friendship in your relationships, right? Be romantic. Right, guys, get her flowers. Send her a text during the day. Write her a poem if that's your thing. Right, get her a small gift, or let her know you're thinking about her, or send her on a spa day. There's so many little things that you can do to be romantic and nurture friendship and romance in your relationship. Girls, women, here's what I tell you. Watch sports with them. That's all I got. I don't really know what they need. We always try to keep this somewhat PG-13. There's another option that I would say, really just do that. Guys are fine with it. Okay, and so hang out with him. No, listen, tell them thank you, right? Tell them you appreciate them and watch them come alive. These are ways that you can begin to nurture those things, right? You want to nurture relationship, friendship, romance? Talk. A lot. Work on communication, right? Here's the thing. This is a muscle that needs to be flexed. Right, and I get it, this doesn't come easy for us. But if you want a strong marriage, if you want to raise kids who have seen what a strong marriage can look like, you do not get the luxury to say, talking's not my thing. I don't know. I don't like to talk about my feelings. I don't know what to say. Listen, it's a muscle that needs to be flexed. And I'm telling you, the more you begin to flex that muscle, the more comfortable you begin to feel. And you want to nurture your relationship, you want to nurture friendship in your marriage, talk. Here's one more. You want to nurture it? You want to see romance grow? Put each other first in your marriage. Make a commitment. I'm going to outdo, I'm going to outlove, I'm going to out-honor, I'm going to out-serve, I'm going to out-celebrate my spouse. Man, and watch your relationship change. Ephesians 5 says, husbands and wives, submit to one another out of reverence to Christ. Hebrews chapter 13 says, give honor to marriage and remain faithful to one in marriage. Let me just ask you, how are you doing in that? How are you doing in that? One of the best gifts that you can give your children is a healthy marriage. Right? So don't miss this. Listen, if it comes down to making a decision between time with your kids or time with your spouse, choose your spouse every time. Put your marriage mask on first when it comes to relationships. Because listen, if you sacrifice your marriage for the sake of your kids, you will always end up sacrificing both. So here's the last one. Last commitment I want to encourage every single parent to make when it comes to raising and launching kids through adulthood. Every parent needs to commit to spiritual growth. See, our view of God affects everything in our life, right? How we manage our time, how we manage our resources, how we treat people, it affects everything. And on top of that, our relationship with God is critical for another reason. It's this. Moms and dads, I don't care what age you are, but boy, this is important when we're trying to figure this out and raising kids. You are the primary spiritual influence in the life of your kids, not the church. Some of you have outsourced spiritual growth to the church for a long time. And I'm just telling you, in any given year, the church at its best has got about 50 to 60 hours with your kids. You as a parent, take away time at school and take away time when they're sleeping, you have about 2,500 hours with your kids. Make no mistake, you are the biggest spiritual influence in their life. And don't miss this. Kids do what they see, not necessarily what we tell them. Ouch. Amen, Pastor. If Kirby was here, you guys would be talking a lot louder. I'll just tell you that right now. Listen, kids do what they see, not necessarily what we tell them. Right? If you want your kids to have a healthy relationship with God, if you want them to understand what he thinks about them and his role in their life, then man, they have to see it in you. You can tell your kids how important church is. You can tell your kids how important faith is, but if it's not reflected in your calendar, you're sending a different message. See, our kids will decide what God is like and how God relates to them, often based on their relationship with us. And I think one of the things our world, our schools, our workplaces, our communities need more now than ever are parents who raise their kids to know the love of God. And then those kids raise their kids to know and to love God. And honestly, maybe for you that just means attending church as a family has to be more of a priority. Maybe it's you saying, hey, we're going to serve together. We're going to pray together. Honestly, maybe for some of you it just means admitting when you're wrong and saying, hey, listen, man, I'm under authority too. And I make mistakes and God loves me and God forgives me. And I just want to model that. I want you to know I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Would you please forgive me? See, our kids, no matter the age, need to see what a life prioritizing spiritual growth looks like. Let me say it another way. It has to be in you before it can be in them. Right? And some of us, we have different stories. Maybe we experienced God before we did as parents. And I'm not saying that God doesn't work that way. Thank the Lord he does. But we're talking about what it looks like to start with a foundation and to raise kids and to influence relationships. And I'm just telling you, they've got to see those things in you. See, we only get one shot at this life. And my guess is if you're anything like me, we want to get it right. I only get one shot at raising kids. I only get one shot at being my spouse, being a spouse to my wife. I get one shot at this season. I mean, I make tons of mistakes, but at the heart of it, though, I want to get it right. Like, I don't want to be the reason my kid is unpacking thousands of hours in counseling at some point down the future. Like, I want to get this thing right, especially when it comes to the relationships that I have. And when it comes to parenting, our parenting has to be grounded in something. We have to have a foundation. And I'm just here to tell you, I want to submit to you that I think that foundation can be Jesus. See, for many of us, that foundation is cracked and broken, but man, we can begin to put some of these commitments in place. It would give us the foundation we need to parent from a position of health and not guilt or anxiety or frustration. And let me just tell you, it's never too late to start. No matter where you're at in your relationship with God, no matter where you're at in your relationship with your kids, it is never too late to start. So hey, let's make a commitment. Less guilt. Ongoing humility. Unwavering perseverance. Prioritizing a healthy marriage. Committing to spiritual growth. It is never too late to start. It's never too late to invite God to be your foundation. Each week, we're going to be talking about what kids need to hear, what it looks like parenting with the end in mind. Next week, Julie Richard is going to be here. She is the guru when it comes to teaching and parenting and so many great things. If you have some friends that you want to invite, bring them along because it's going to be a really great series. And maybe when we talk about parenting, it just stirs up a lot of regret, a lot of fear, a lot of things going, I just don't know what to do. And listen, you're not alone. We're trying to help as much as we can throughout this series. In fact, there is a web page that we've even designed right now that is filled with parenting resources. You can find it on our website, or you can scan the QR code and you can kind of take it there. It is tons of books and blogs and videos and things, and it is life-giving and it is helpful information. And I guarantee you there's some things in there that will change the way you look at the relationship you have with your kids. And no matter what season, there's resources if you have adult kids or toddlers or struggling to become a parent and wanting to be one, but it just hasn't worked out yet. There are resources for you in those. When we do things like Bloom and Bloomies, or men's barbecue and sons barbecue and bags night, and At the end of this month, we're doing a family movie night where you get to come together and just spend some time. The reason we do these things is because we want to be a church that fights for our families. We want to be a church that fights for our marriage. We want to be a church that fights for our kids. I don't want to outsource raising my kids to the school districts. I don't want to outsource raising my kids to TV and culture or TikTok or YouTube. And so, man, I need all the help I can get. I need people who've gone before me. I need people who create safe places to say, man, it's hard. Here's how we navigated that. Or I don't know how we even got through it. We just put one foot in front of the other, and my commitment is I'll walk through it with you. Like, we need that together. And we want to be the kind of church that fights for our families. And so I just want to encourage you, don't miss a week. Invite some friends, bring some people with you over these next few weeks as we talk about what it looks like to kind of blow up the lie that there are picture-perfect families. Instead, what we can find is that there are perfect families who found Jesus, and Jesus fixed all the things that we need to and is in the process of healing our lives to continue to be who he called and created us to be. There's no perfect people around, so man, don't parent with that guilt. Don't parent with that pressure. Don't live with that pressure. None of us are perfect. But because of God, anything is possible. Would you pray with me today? God, thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're doing in our life and in our families. And God, I know when we start talking about marriage or relationships or parenting our kids, it can stir up a ton of emotions. So God, I just pray you meet us all right where we're at, in our individual places, whatever we're feeling, and that you meet us in those places. And that you provide our hearts with what we need to take the right next step. Maybe it's repairing our relationship with you and prioritizing spiritual growth. God, if that's where we're at, would you allow us to take that next step today? God, maybe something that we share today speaks to our heart. Give us the courage to continue to take our next right step. We need all the help we can get. And God, we're so grateful for all that you give to us. Meet us in these places. Bring families together. Restore relationships. Sons and daughters that have walked away from the faith, God, bring them back. Bring them back in Jesus' name. Thanks for what you're doing in our hearts and our lives and the privilege that we have to influence the relationships that you've given us. May we do it well. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Heritage Church, we love you. Thanks for being a part of what God is doing here at Heritage Church. Listen, you can still, if you haven't signed up for Bloom or Bloomies and you want to get that book, do it right now. Head out, invite some friends. We'll see you next week.